Good afternoon, faithful. There are some reports swirling regarding 49ers free agent quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. As we know, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan both have stated in the last month or so in their recent press conferences that Jimmy Garoppolo is not expected to come back. They've kind of written him off, and we know Jimmy Garoppolo is about to test the free agent market on March 15th. Today, according to ESPN's Dan Graziano, the Raiders are expected to pursue Jimmy Garoppolo if they fail to acquire Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, Rodgers is the big fish in the market, and depending on what happens with him, will kind of dictate what's going to happen with the Raiders. It says, according to this article, according to Graziano, he says if they can't get Rodgers, a lot of people in Indianapolis this week expect McDaniels and GM Dave Ziegler to pursue free agent quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. It says who they've known from his time in New England early in his career, right? They're linked to Jimmy Garoppolo, McDaniels, and Ziegler because they were in New England during the time that Jimmy Garoppolo was a backup quarterback. Obviously, 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo, this situation has kind of been, a time bomb, a ticking time bomb in if he's going to stay, if he's going to go. He stayed last year, but this year it does look like the writing's on the wall and they're not going to bring him back, right? According to John Lynch last week, he says, Jimmy has been tremendous for us in our first year. At the end of the year, we do a trade and Jimmy comes in, lights it up. And a lot of people want to talk about what we didn't accomplish with him. What I know is we won a lot of football games with Jimmy. We admire his toughness. We admire the teammate that he was. And basically, he says that he does believe that it's probably run his course with Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, why do we care about Jimmy Garoppolo going to the Raiders potentially? Well, the reason is if Jimmy Garoppolo signs a pretty good contract in free agency, they can get a good compensatory pick for Jimmy Garoppolo for next season, right? So obviously we know the door is closed for Jimmy, but if Jimmy Garoppolo nets a contract within the top 35% of his position, the 49ers were to get a third round compensatory pick. He's probably not going to get a $30 million contract, but if he can get about a $17 million contract, $18 million somewhere to be a starter, the 49ers will receive a compensatory pick, but he has to be able to sign a deal before May 1st, right? So he has to sign a deal by May 1st, which is ranked within the top 35% of the quarterback market. So if you're a 49ers fan and you want more draft picks, you hope that Jimmy Garoppolo goes to a team where he can start, and the Raiders are a team that he would probably be able to start with, and the 49ers would get another draft pick next season in the 2024 draft as a third round pick. So again, we have to kind of sit here and wait and watch where Jimmy's going because it will help the 49ers in the future. The 49ers, right, they're a team that loves to develop and go through the draft. Jimmy Garoppolo getting a third round pick would be huge. They basically gave up a second round pick several years ago to get him. So if they were to get a third round pick in return, essentially, for Jimmy Garoppolo, then you kind of count that as a pretty big W there because you do get a pretty decent return back for a quarterback, who did win a lot of games, but obviously the injuries have been unfortunate to him and his team. And you get something pretty decent in return. A third round pick, the 49ers would be able to turn that into something pretty well because they are good at drafting mid round and late round. So a third round pick would be ideal. Again, Jimmy Garoppolo, there is some interest reportedly from ESPN's Dan Graziano from the Raiders. There is, obviously their head coach and their GM. They have some history with Jimmy Garoppolo. So we'll see. Let me know in the comments. What do you guys think? Where do you guys think that Jimmy Garoppolo is going in free agency? There's a lot of teams, the Jets, the Dolphins, the Buccaneers, the Saints, and the Raiders, who have all kind of been rumored. Again, this is all rumors right now. Where do you think Jimmy goes? And do you think that getting a third round pick next season is fair compensation? Let me know what you think in the comments, faithful.